Ladies and gents, quick update here is that the G has been sitting a long time and it has been giving me trouble on and off, and my wife would take it to the gas station and it would never start and it was doing some weird things. So I parked it in the Kmart parking lot. I call it our gigantic driveway for a while. And then it snowed about 5 times, 31 inches in one day, and then a bunch of times after that. And then I went to clean up the snow around it and fire it up and bring it in here to do some maintenance and figure out what's going on. And it wouldn't even start. The starter would not work at all. Just the solenoid would click. And then I got annoyed that I've been spending a bunch of money on it, and now it won't start, and it's driving like crap and leaving her stranded. So I was like, I don't know what I want to do with this next, but I want to change the blower and some other things. So I took the blower off and I sold it 2 days ago, mostly complete assembly. And I put on a spare truck intake, and then I plugged everything in. I replaced the starter. The starter was bad. I bought another starter. Here's the starter. Sorry if I'm making you nauseous. Here's the starter, and it's like $184 mini starter. I got the part number from, it's a PowerMaster 9000, which sounds like a joke, but that's the part number. And here's the billet block that goes to an LS, I believe, and I have to swap it with a LOJ. Has a bracket that goes onto this with all the bushings also, and then that's what bolts to the CD09 transmission. And I think I took a picture or two of that. Maybe I can throw it in the video, but I replaced the starter and I put the long tube back in. I pulled the long tube out. It was not bad at all to do, and shoved the starter in and then put the long tube back in. And it's a little tight, but this car is not bad to work on. It's easier than F-body. It's easier than a CTS-V. It looks bad, but it's not that bad to work on, to be honest. Like, you can reach the back of the intake, and it's tight in some spots, but it's not awful. So I decided to take the blower off, and I was like, you know what? I want to drive it, and for it to be not a pain in the ass for a while, so I don't hate it. And then also selling this with the blower, nitrous, return fuel system, 2-stage brushless, twin disc clutch, all of that added in is difficult. These cars sell for like 13 to 16 depending, and trying to sell it for like what I have in it, 21, 24,000, no one is going to spend that, in my opinion, unless they absolutely want this. So I was like, I'm going to sell a bunch off of it, or just pull a bunch out so that it's a functional street car for a while, and then decide what I want to do. One of the things I might want to do is do like a rear mount T4 80mm and pipe it up to the front. One of them is just drive it as it is and maybe sell it. I have a bunch of options there. It's not really worth it for me to, unfortunately, pulling the clutch out and putting in a single disc and trying to sell the twin used as a retrofit only for this platform is not easy to do also. So it's not worth pulling that out. The transmission and everything is not really worth yanking out just to swap a clutch, just to make $500, just to put a single disc in. So I fired it with the junkyard intake, and it had stock injectors, and I figured I would do that just to get it moving and then go from there. And then what happened was 3 of the injectors were dead. It sounded awful. And then I used the temp gun, and these front 3 cylinders were 75 degrees, and the other ones were warming up like 250 at that point. I was like, well, okay, that's no good. So what I ended up doing was I had a set of Snake Eater, Snake Eater 650s that are medium length. Snake Eater 600, 60-pounders. So this is the answer to the people who are struggling with like what to buy. for people are buying like 1500s for lightly modified gas cars. So see SCP 600cc. So the 28s weren't going to cut it with this on ethanol or anything else. And luckily enough, this is a Trailblazer intake. His medium height 600s here were drop-in, and they had the same connector. You can call it fate or whatever, but honestly, it's the only spare SEPs I had left. I gave most of the other ones away. So I dropped those in. I changed I didn't have any other data, so I just chose FIC 650s. And it fired right up, and it's been fine. The only other thing I didn't have was I didn't have an accessory belt because, as you can see for the blower, I upgraded to 8-rib. Everything's 8-rib, even the overdrive pulley underneath. So I put a 6-rib on it for now, and then I had a pulley, a smooth pulley on top that, see, because the blower, the belt, the smooth, or the rib side had gone around the blower, and this was smooth to reroute it over and under. But guess what this is? It is a water pump tensioner idler bracket on like a stock LS. It's the tensioner bracket pulley. So I put that on and it fit, and then I guessed, I measured, I have a belt that's cut and I wrap it all the way around accessories and I pinch it with channel locks or locking pliers, and then I mark it with a silver Sharpie, and then I take the belt out and I stretch it and I measure, and I guessed, and it's a 68-inch, and it was dead nuts perfect. So $20 from AutoZone, lifetime warranty on that belt, and now I fired it up and it's charging and it has power steering. And let me tell you what, this car is hard as hell to steer. It has almost impossible to move without power steering. So the other thing is, when it wouldn't start, I hooked up my jumper box to it like a total idiot backwards, and I blew the Holly fuses. So I ended up like pulling a bunch out. Like I have the total footwell stuff pulled out. I have everything pulled out over there. Because what I did, you know, I was super cool guy here, and I hid the Holly in the second glove box, and I tucked everything underneath, so my fuses are like way under here, like a jerk. Anyway, it runs, drives, has accessory belt on it, has a Trailblazer intake, has SEP60s. So I want to get it driving and have some fun with it, and then I want to put it on the dyno, see how it does with the 60s. I want to see the duty cycle on gas and E85. I want to develop a bass tune for you guys to use and to hand it out, of course, because I think the 60s are going to be an amazing option for people that don't want gigantic, but don't want 28-pound stock, but want drop-in Trailblazer injectors and etc. So that's where I'm at. And then another neat thing I did was, excuse the mess, I'm redoing all this. I put a Holly solid state relay block in. They sent me one. They sent me a few of them actually, and I wanted to do a video specifically on them, and I thought this was a kind of a BS product, but I ended up really, really liking it. I got another one over here. That one's hard to see. So it's this guy. And I want to do like an entire video on this. This is the upgraded one. This is the higher current. You can see it says high current. My other one does not. And what's incredible about these guys, honestly, I'm not BSing here. This thing is an incredible design, because you feed the center one here with like a 6 battery wire, and then these are outputs 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the big thing here is you can trigger by power or ground, and what it needs is a single ground here as a trigger to run everything else. So you ground this all the time, and then grounding 1, 2, 3, or 4 turns on output 1, 2, 3, or 4. And then powering these, so if you have something that's powered, you don't have to relay or get confused or whatever. You just put it in one or the other, and then you can daisy them, and then you can also daisy outputs, so it does 35 amps each. If you read the diagram, it can do like 80 amps for a short time. It can do 35 amps forever with the high current one. So you can chain 2 of these together and it'll do 70 amps all the time. Like 2 of these out, 70 amps. And then what's neat is it has indicators that are red and green if it's on or working or faulted. It has built-in temperature protection and overcurrent protection, and it'll stop working. It'll do basically circuit breaker fused, and then it'll try again. It'll keep trying again indefinitely. So what's cool about that is it's also solid state. So there's nothing mechanically in here to go bad, and also you can pulse width them, and that's something I'm doing with the fans on the G. So as it gets hot, instead of just firing on and drawing a bunch of current, like I have some pretty big fans here, and when they fire on, the headlights and the interior light will dim, and the whole car will be like, whoa, it'll be like, whoa. These draw a ton of inrush, like 75 amps. They draw a ton of power, and then as soon as they're spinning, they drop to like 10 amps. So if you PWM them, you start off low and then gradually do more power. Also, what that does is the fan only has to go about 50% to cool the car back down. It never has to go full speed. So I'm testing that now. It's working great. I want to show you guys more about that. But yeah, incredibly useful. This is my battery charger also, because I've been beating the crap out of this with the key on, testing everything. So yeah, those are an incredible product, and I want to do a separate video and show you why and everything else. But the other update is I didn't want to show this initially, but it's done because Jaimie is doing her own updates on this. It is a 91 Jetta Mark II. It's super clean, and we did a VR swap on it. We did a 98 OBD2 VR swap on it and tried to make it as clean as possible. She has the VR6 intake cover that holds the wires and everything else, and we wanted to make it looks as OE as possible, and that took a lot of work. So it's done. I didn't want to really show it, but we spent, I think, 3 months working on this. My wife does not have a lot of spare time, and I didn't want to just finish this car for her, so we've been working on it together for a long time, an hour every now and then, a couple hours a week at night, and everything else, and almost the whole car has been replaced with like new OE parts. So you can check out her channel. I will leave a link. This is done and driving and everything else, and one of her unicorn cars is to have a Mark II and then to have a VR swap Mark II, and now she has it. People might think that's funny with the collection she has, but it's something she's always wanted. She loves Volkswagen. So it is done, and it is amazingly clean. If you look at the interior, it is incredibly nice. I don't think there's interior lights in these cars, is there? I don't know. But yeah, look at the seats and everything. And we have spare stuff in the back. This door's locked. The door handles didn't work, of course. We replaced the lock cylinders. We replaced the door handles. The passenger side ones worked. These did not. She did even smoke tail lights. You know, we have replaced everything. This car from the stupid previous owner had like 6 of these old AAA stickers. I don't know why. Volkswagen things. It came with progressive rate coilovers with 2 springs and an isolator. That was nice. Yada, yada, yada. And my buddy Kenny helped us swap it. He works part-time at a place called MMI, not far from us. That's incredible also. He helped us thin out the entire wire harnesses and everything else. So just want to give him some credit. It has a brand new exhaust front to back. It has a Mark III gas tank. It has a brand new fuel pump assembly. I mean, it has as much as you can think of. It has it. So I just wanted to show that off a little bit. This has been eating up some time. Not that I hate it at all, and not that I, you know, not that I'm like, I resent this build at all, but we've been spending a lot of time on it. So that's the reason why a bunch of other stuff has been going slow. Snowstorms. We did 2 vacations, blah, blah, blah. You know, a bunch of stuff got in the way, and the cars aren't that important. And the big thing is continuing the Mustang doesn't make sense to, it makes sense to, we hate having cars that don't run. I don't know if a lot of you can identify with that. So having this ripped apart, because what we had was this running fine, and she bought a 98 VR6 parts car, And then we tore that completely apart, ripped out all the stuff we needed, gas tank, like I said, fuel lines, a bunch of things. And then we got a conglomerate of stuff. Like, I think it's a Passat front beam for the motor and the Mark III rack, and then she did new control arms because they were rusty, and it was actually cheaper to replace the entire control arm with new ball joints and everything than just, a lot of it's kind of funny. So we did most of the front ends new. When it was empty, we sprayed degreaser in the entire engine bay, and I pulled it out to my pass-through and pressure washed it and everything else. Like, literally all the things you can think of we did. Most of the parts are brand new. It doesn't look like it, but I guess that's the thing, right? If it doesn't look like a lot was done, you can tell a lot was done. So anyway, this wasn't running. This was mostly through being modified. So when this is like 99% done. It has a leak from somewhere. It's like brakes or power steering. I can't find it. It is killing me because it's otherwise completely done. And then this wouldn't even start. Starter wasn't working at all. Fuses were blown from me hooking up the battery things wrong. I'll admit that. I did that wrong because I'm a dumbass here. Let me just show you. I made a new ground cable out of red wire. And then this is red power wires. Why did I do that? And I even said to myself, oh, I won't be the idiot that hooks these up wrong. I do it constantly now. So I have to replace this because that was a terrible idea. That was a terrible, absolutely terrible idea. So I just would like to drive this and have some fun, deliver some dyno results. I asked, because the truck intake is ugly, and also for fun, I asked Holly if they would send me a car intake to be lower and also to test. And they said yes. They're going to try their best to send me the MSD Atomic for this setup. So what I'm going to do is do what I can with the truck intake, even though I did it before, but fresh dyno pulls, set up, everything else, see if it lost power, and then go straight to, because honestly what happened was this had 799s. I put the blower on, and then I put 862s on to raise the compression, and it made better power up top, but less down low. Anyway, circle back, truck intake dyno pulls with the different heads, and then swap the intake, see what it makes. So that'll be a neat test, and then I'll decide what I want to do. Like I said, just drive it, just sell it as is, pull more parts out of it, sell it demodded, blah, blah, blah. I have a lot of options, but it's moving on its own. It is driving, and that's all I care about. I hate having, Jaimie and I hate having cars in stages of not working. So this had to work, and this has to work, and they're pretty much done now. If I can't find this leak, I'm done. And they're getting parked outside, and the Mustang's coming in because I have, that's my transmission. Camera Powers built it. D3 brake. Everything built to the hilt. This is the triple disc lockup billet, two-piece bolt together 4LE converter from Hughes Performance, and I gave them bad specs for the plate, and they're going to redo the back plate. So I took it apart and sent them the face plate, and they're fixing it. And then this thing has to go in. Like, I'm tired of waiting. It's been forever. There is the aluminum stroker stock bore 360 cubic inch aluminum, etc. That's the turbo whatever motor for built. That's a built motor. It has pistons, rods, crank from Summit. They teamed up with me, so that'll be incredible and awesome. And then I bought an entire, my buddy Terrence had an entire Tube K, coilovers, engine mounts, A-arms. Actually, he didn't have the A-arms. Another guy in Sloppy sent these to me for free. Maximum Motorsports A-arms. But I got everything else from Terrence. All of this is going to go in. So I got to cut the front end off, throw the K member away, and then it has a 7.5 stock V6 rear. I bought an 8.8 rear end, and I dropped it off at my buddy Jace's because he has a jig and everything else. And I said, buy an entire Mosier kit. What else do I need? And we're going to do a spool and 35 splines because I said this car will make go high 7s. It has literally like the whole catalog thrown at it. 9-inch ends, adjustable lowers, adjustable uppers, everything welded. It's braced. He has done a ton of them, and I just trust him to do it. And since this is super fancy, I basically paid a chassis guy, my buddy Jace, to do everything to the rear, and I'm just going to bolt it in because why the hell not? Because that's everything done by Matt Miller Engines, and I'm going to drop it in. And then that's everything done by Cameron, Professional Trans Builder, and I'm bolting it in. And that's everything done by Hughes Performance, triple disc, bolt together, lock up, billet. Like, why quit? Why just drop off the front end and do that? So all of that's going to get done, and then I need to bring this in like a week, show you guys everything with that. I didn't show much of this. I just replaced the starter and bolted the intake on. It runs and everything sounds good. It's definitely firing on all the cylinders now. Hopefully it is not a super pain and I don't hate it and throw it into a landfill soon. But it was getting there, so we just parked it for a while to alleviate the frustration of it and did these cars and everything else, and did maintenance on the fleet, because we have 10 vehicles again. We had 12, and then we had 11, and then we had a parts car, and then, yeah. So it's been up and down, and now we have 10 again. And then also, in the meantime, with the Mustang going on, I'll probably bring I bought another Kia, so I'm going to do the turbo stuff and everything to that Kia. And I think I said I have a special engine I'm going to swap into the Kia when the stock engine is done, because it's already pretty much done. But that's a big cumulative update for the G and everything else. So this is nice and happy. So we're going to be driving it more. It's totally fun. I drove it up the street and I'm like, man, this car is cool again. I don't hate it right now. This car is done, blah, 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 blah. So the only thing that isn't running and driving is the Mustang. That's pretty much an empty shell outside. And, oh yeah, I'll do another video on it. Scratch that. Well, there's my plates. I got to post those up in the marketplace. I have something cool that also arrived for the Mustang, 2 things, and I'll just do another video on that because they're like specific and whatnot. So I'll see if this came out any good because I'm pointing it backwards at me, and we'll go from there. Thanks, bye.